Hello and welcome to the 13th episode of the Cube Circus. As always, I am your 13-time guest, Smlz. We're also joined by regular co-hosts Denish and Xenaid, and our special guest this time around, it's KMBest. KM, how are you doing?
I've got a bone to pick with you. I have a show called 8 Cubes.
Oh,
And I feel like this is maybe a little bit derivative of that show, 8 Cubes. By mentioning 8 Cubes, are you attempting to steal my SEO? That niche that I have worked for, is that a direct attempt? Will I have to file legal action? I have lawyers on retainer. They are not good lawyers.
oh, well.
But I will send them after you.
We also don't have very good lawyers, but we have Xenaid, and Xenaid makes a circus out of 8 cubes pretty often.
Yeah,
so
actually, I have way more claim to 8 cubes than you do, because when do you play for 8?
I never.
Yeah, I play for 8, win or lose.
Happen. That is true. That is true. If there is one player who I think 8 Cube Circus encapsulates, I would say it is probably the two of you. Yeah. Smlz doesn't count. That's why he's a guest host.
Yeah, that's why I'm the 13th-time guest, and you two are the co-hosts.
Yeah, returning guest host, but like not he's getting paid
not the real one,
paid, right? Like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys haven't told him, but like he's making half money off this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we are next going to go to our first topic, tech cards. So we know that you love your tech cards, KM. So we're going to start with you. What do you think is tech's role in the metagame, and how has the nerf to tech cards really contributed to the advancement of this one?
Well, what's interesting is it hasn't contributed as much as people would think. A lot of the initial reactions to this metagame were like, wait, can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, you can swear.
Yeah.
Okay. We're like, holy fucking shit. This is just going to be numbers. Oh my God, it's going to be fucking numbers. Oh my God, I can't believe they're so fucking stupid. That was like a solid amount of my comments, right? And setting aside my comment section's propensity to be like that anyway, I do think that there is something to the idea of that in theory, when you nerf a bunch of tech cards, what happens is release valves get weaker, things get a little bit stupider. What they didn't nerf, though, were the tech cards that are actually important release valves. And those are Mobius, those are Stardust. And so it turns out those are the ones that are like really keeping things held down. And arguably buffing Enchantress, similarly, like Living Tribunal is probably the third deck you would put in that like negative hella category where it's just like, I've done my thing. Suck it. And Enchantress not getting hit nearly as hard allows her to continue in her role there. So weirdly, as much as you would like to say like these cards perform their theoretical role, I think they actually perform a much less important function for the development of a metagame than you would otherwise like. Like Shang-Chi, I think, should probably get reverted back because the Sauron stuff is, no offense, cool, but probably not what you want setting the baseline for a metagame. Like, you don't want every deck to have to be like, I need to beat 10s every game. Like, that's how tall I need to be to ride. You probably don't want that. But honestly, getting rid of the rest of this stuff, it didn't really feel like they like did a bunch, you know? They kept the right tech card strong. That's what I'll say.
I mean, I'll push a little on the point that every deck shouldn't be trying to beat 10s, but I think when Sauron is like the points police, like be bigger or around the size of Sauron, you can beat Sauron without Shang, and that's a sign of a healthy metagame rather than necessarily like when the things go way bigger than Sauron, like with quad. Right. Yeah, and that's really unfair. That feels really unfair when Sauron can't even compete on points.
The point I was making is more like, I think it is probably better long term for Shang to depress the relative ceiling of the metagame than for Sauron, or the relative floor of the metagame, than for Sauron to consistently set that floor here. Like, it's cool when it's around, but also Shang allows them to make more cards in that range of things that are like weaker than 10s and have them be playable. And so I think like that's the benefit I've seen from him. But like, if you ask me like, oh, they should revert Killmonger, Zoo is dominating, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you like? That's just not a thing that's actually happening.
Yeah, I do like what you said, where it seems like, especially because they did all the tech cards at once, you don't have, oh, Killmonger's still here. Well, Killmonger's not here. But like, if it was only Killmonger, then maybe Zoo would become more dominant. Whereas, no, they took out Shang and Enchantress and Shadow, like all of the tech cards. I think, especially now that we know we don't necessarily need them to keep everything in check, some of the changes could be kept. I'm not a proponent of keeping Shang at destroy one card, but now that we've seen it, I do think a lot of these, yeah, like even Enchantress is a really cool change. What I wonder is, and I want to get into this a little bit more later, like, of course, with Mobius and Stardust specifically, is it a bigger deal? Because Negative and Hella are the two things that they most prominently handle, as well as BP Zola and ridiculously large combo stuff like that, like maybe a Nimrod.
Nimrod.
I almost wonder if, do you think, KM, it's healthier to nerf the things that they're hitting, or just keep these global instant loss tech cards? What do you think would be a healthier choice overall for the game?
I hate to make this argument, but I think it is a healthier choice for the game to have the tech cards exist. And I'll tell you why. Because as much as I don't like Mr. Negative or Hella or whatever it is that makes the game not actually happen, as much as I don't like decks that don't build on themselves and care about the board and things of that nature, that is a kind of player who deserves to be catered to as well. And I think it would be bad if instead of releasing ways to interact with that stuff, they just nuked that stuff. You are the Hella guy. Would you prefer they just deleted Hella? Because I don't think you would.
Well, I've always found that Hella was relatively balanced, but assuming that we'll go with everyone else's opinion, where I'll even use Negative as an example, that it definitely isn't. Like if there was no Mobius, Negative's ridiculous. I think it's possible to put Negative and Hella in a space where they're playable, but not like ridiculous, like current Negative. I think the 7/12 with Hella with Scar, that deck was a little bit over the top. I think you can probably lower it to keep the card's identity. Maybe make Mr. Negative affect 2 cards instead of all of them. Or like do small things like that that let you play these deck styles that the people want. Because once again, I really don't like the idea of removing cards from the game. I don't love what they did to Kang, even though I don't think anyone really cares. Or like Old Crystal. I didn't like that they changed Old Crystal because I played that card. That was when she used to you'd play her in the middle location and she would give you 3 cards in your hand and reshuffle the entire hand back into the deck so that you have 3 cards. Like I liked that card and now I don't get to use it anymore. I do get that argument, but I also think it's possible once again to lower the maybe don't make Hella ridiculous. You put it like at the level of everything else and then just get rid of Stardust. Because yeah.
So my counter argument to that is I think the things people enjoy about those decks is the ridiculousness. Right? Like, I think that it is better for these decks to have access to doing something really stupid because people want to do something really stupid. People don't play Mr. Negative for its metagame positioning. They play Mr. Negative because it's awesome to drop an Iron Man that costs 0. Because that's sick nasty and it makes numbers get really, really big, and that's super dope. And yeah, you could like nerf these decks to only be like, I don't know, using an arbitrary number here. Let's say your average mid-range deck is outputting 50 points and your average combo deck is outputting 70 points, and that's the problem. And you nerf them down to like they're outputting 55 points, right? Not only does that require constant like monitoring consistently in a way that kind of sucks, it also makes the people who want to play a big numbers deck sadder because they just don't have that ability. So like in my view, as much as I think cards like Mobius and Stardust are heavy-handed, and I do wish that it was like, again, it's the loot cage problem. I wish there were more solutions to this. I wish there were other ways to do stuff. I feel like they're the best option available out of an array of not wonderful options for a top-end balance.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the tech cards that got changed. The first one I want to really touch on is Enchantress. I know me, Denish, and Xenaid have pretty much come to the conclusion that we think the Enchantress change was a buff. We think that 5/8 is good. I'm going to expand upon that. I think it's also a little bit better. It makes her a less, like, splashable card. You need to have more, I think, of an investment, whether it be like some ramp in your deck, like Merlin and Luna Snow, or maybe you're running cards that want to get turned off, like Sauron. But I like this Enchantress change because I think it feels better in the decks that can justify it to play it, because 8 power is a pretty big body. And it also takes justification to play in, so you can't just like splash in any old deck. What do you think about the change, Cam?
Vouch. I mean, in my video on the changes, I was like, I kind of expect in about a week, a bunch of my Hilo friends are going to come to me and be like, this was a buff. And here you all are doing exactly that thing. So there you go. I mean, congratulations on being my Hilo friends, I guess. That's like, the best I can say for that is like, yeah, no, yeah. I don't know if it's a buff per se, but I know it's not a nerf. I don't feel bad about it. Like, I'm happy to have Enchantress in my deck. And the one thing I will say, at risk of being repetitive, because I think I've said this on a couple of different places by this point. So if you're like a devoted KM follower, I apologize. And also, what are you doing with your life? There's more distance between Enchantress and Rogue now, which I think is good. Because Rogue basically had no space, because there are very few decks that actually use Rogue offensively. She's just remove an ongoing from your opponent. And when she's a 3/2 and Enchantress is a 4/6, and Enchantress does the exact same thing, you play the 4/6 every single time. And now there is like a more concrete reason to be a Rogue deck, because it is accepting that it is just the ongoing removal at 3 cost. You actually are more able to afford that in some decks than another 5. And I think that's good too.
One more thing. We touched on this in a previous episode. Do you think Rogue should be buffed from a 3/2? Do you think she could go to like a 3/3? Yes. Or a 3/4 even on the same level as RG?
I'm biased because basically the only comics I read contemporarily are X-Men comics, and she is the leader of one of the X-Men teams, and I like her a lot. Rogue should be a 3/5.
3/5?
Yeah, you heard me.
I think Rogue is interesting. I think 3/5 is a little overkill, because like that's copycat stats. Although copycat, I don't know, maybe copycat shouldn't be a 3/5 either. You might be onto something. But I do think Rogue is interesting, especially because a lot of the ongoings that people are playing now are things like Sam Wilson, where like, okay, you rogue it, you're not getting upside, you're just stopping them from getting upside. Or like a lot of the ongoings that people are playing nowadays, other than Iron Man and like all the old ones that Rogue has always hit, a lot of the newer ones that you're actually hitting, like Hydra Stomper, like nobody cares about roguing a Hydra Stomper. Yep. It's only good because you're stopping them from doing it. And so I do feel like Rogue, you're not getting the upside of her nearly as much as you used to. So yeah, maybe 3/5.
Vehemently against Rogue being a 3/5, because like I've made the argument with you guys before, but I think 3/5s need to have like some imaginable world where playing them is a downside. And like Polaris has that downside. Copycat, you can steal a bad card. Nocturne was like only upside, right? You can move it and change the location. When it was 3/5, that's a nerd.
Bar with no name, bro.
Oh yeah, my bad. Like the one in like 100. Like most of the 3/5s have like some arguable downside, and I feel like 3/5 Rogue is just completely upside. I'd see 3/4 as completely reasonable. I think 3/5 is pushing it.
I think they broke that a while ago. Like, with all due respect, Luna Snow is a 3/6. What are we talking about here?
Ramping your opponent's pretty bad. Ramping you is pretty
good.
No, but like you got to make sure you're not playing into like Hella. You got to make sure like there's
okay. Oh my god, my 36. Like, I don't know, man. I just feel like if you want a card to actually be a consider, they're doing Super Adaptoid at 3/5. If you want me to like actually look at a card and be like, I'm gonna put that in my deck to deal with a thing that won't happen every game, I probably won't do that if Rogue is a 3/3.
I don't know about 3/5. 3/5 is a lot. I mean, you brought up the Luna example, but like ramping your opponent is definitely a pretty significant downside. I think that card is allowed to be 3/6 because of how significant the downside is. Rogue is a card that I kind of wish they had half power. I think 3, 4.5 is probably the right spot for her. Because I think she's probably got a worse text box than RG because it's just not universally applicable. So I think that putting her at like a half power above RG is fine. But for now, I just put the RG back at 3-2 and have Rogue at 3-4. I think that's like more fair, but I could definitely see 3-5 Rogue being something that wouldn't break the game.
Yeah, like I think people assume that cards would break the game with like 1 or 2 extra power. They'd be good or whatever. But like 3-5 Rogue is not going to be like a problem. It might be like too strong, but it's not going to be like, oh my god, you know, in the way that like there's a limit to how good a card like that can ever be. It might be too, but it might not be like limiting in the way other cards can.
I think if Rogue was 3-5, Tribunal would be a dead archetype, and I think like that would be like the problem, one of the problems that cause. Just because like I'm considering running Rogue as a 3-2 already, and like there's some criminal things that can happen, like when cards are cheap and easily techable. The difference between Enchantress, going back to the ongoing hate, being a 4 and a 5 to me has not felt that different. Because in the decks that you want to play Engine, you're either ramping to play a 5+2 anyway, or like a 4+2 is not that good on turn 6. Like a 4+2 like sucks. Like the 2-drops are terrible. Like 2 3s, the only 2 5s are like Lizard and like Silk. Like, and then no one's really playing Maximus either. So I feel like there wasn't much opportunity cost for Enchantress to go from a 4 to a 5. It feels a lot healthier though, because the upside of discounting Enchantress was reducing her to 3, and like that, like, you know, the Zabu decks, the Sarah decks.
If you mention the word goose right now, I'm hanging up this phone call.
No, I just 3+3 is a much better pairing. Like when you play 2 3-power cards, yeah,
there's no way, dude.
So versus now, like the upside of discounting Enchantress is much more minimal. Versus like you can play it on a separate turn, then you play a Red Skull if you're playing Sauron. But the interactions between like the 4+ card and the 5+ card, it doesn't feel like there's much space, you know, or like much different for when you're planning your last turn plays out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like how you're like,
I will
if
say,
you're
though,
playing Sauron, like you'd play something else.
I played other decks. I dabble in the Victoria hand.
This is like me going on a podcast and being like, if you're playing a mid-range deck, you know, like. Okay.
I made the Cobra Tribunal deck. I just want to say, like,
the Cobra Tribunal deck that sees how much play from Tribunal players now.
Well, when Denish and I piloted it, that was disgusting. It was, the stats on that were disgusting.
Tribunal stats now are ridiculous. I'm climbing with it.
Dude, he's coming for your spot. He's like, I'm sick of being a guest host. I'm sick of being the 13-time guest.
Yeah. But anyway, I think we're moving on from Enchantress. The next 2 tech cards I want to look at are Shadow King and Cosmo, actually, because Cam, you've been around the game. You know Shadow King. There was a whole movement to make this card great. Like, he was 3 cost, he was 4 cost, then 3 cost, and now he was 2 cost, now he's back to 3. And like, if you've looked at Untap, the stats are disgusting for the best A-tier cards. I don't know if you've ever pulled up that page recently, but every single A-tier card is a move card. It's like the most disgusting thing ever. And move doesn't run Cosmo anymore, right? Because Cosmo is almost unplayable. And so we were talking about it, and we're like, what's the role of Cosmo? Is Cosmo meant to protect yourself from tech cards? Or is it meant to like stop your opponent's game plan? Like, it feels like it's not doing either one of those jobs very well right now as a 4/6. I don't even know if it was doing it super well as a 3/3. So I'm like, what do you think about where Cosmo should be?
You're being unfair. Oh yeah, Cosmo move is great without Cosmo. Yeah, they nerfed every card you play Cosmo to stop.
Yeah, but like
deleted from the game every card you would reasonably play Cosmo in that deck to prevent happening to you. So yeah, of course move is doing well. It doesn't have to play Cosmo anymore because it doesn't need to stop anything. It's just bigger than you. What? Oh, I'm going to stop me getting Shang-Chi? Yeah, man, you're not playing that card. I'm not playing around it. You're not playing it. It's okay. Like,
But what I'm saying is like Cosmo is worse, but like if Shadow King was better, could move justify playing Cosmo as a 4-6 rather than like waiting for him to return to a 3-3. Right? Because it's like the role of Cosmo. Cosmo was doing his job a good amount of the time at 3-3, but that's when all the tech cards were a lot better, right? Now that the tech cards are a lot worse and Cosmo is worse, how much better do the tech cards need to be to reintroduce Cosmo into the metagame? Also, like, how stupid does Wong stuff have to be? Or like turn 6 on reveals have to be for Cosmo to really make a big resurgence? Because Cosmo is gone, but you don't see Wong's stuff running all around either, right?
Well, I think a lot of that is when you look at Wong's stuff as its own archetype has other cards that it gets absolutely crushed by, right? When you get these cards nerfed, all the tech cards, right? You get like a bunch of like sicko desperate to play interaction people playing Lady Deathstrike and Cosmic Ghost Rider. That is not me, to be clear.
It's fine.
I'm just playing the same 12 cards that I was playing before in my Invisible Woman deck. I don't need to find tech elsewhere. I'm playing the exact same tech I was already playing. But you get like a bunch of people who are just like, I can't handle this. I need to be able to interact with my opponent because they're doing something really stupid. So they play a bunch of cards that just sort of incidentally dunk on Wong, which is very funny because it's like, I'm finally free. Finally, someone let me out of my cage. And it's just like, I'm going to play White Tiger, and Stardust is everywhere and Cosmic Ghost Rider is everywhere. And you just get obliterated. It's very sad. And the other deck that would occasionally play Wong is Mr. Negative, which is not DOA, but it's also like Wong's not very important to that. Like, that's not really the thing you're doing. Cosmo in move, like specifically big move, is I think a really interesting question. Because the deck is such that it is almost explicitly able to afford being able to stop being interactive. Like the only thing that's meaningful for it against like your normal Shang-Chi mid-range deck is you can't interact with me. My guys live, your guys don't have text. They would normally get rid of my guys. I think 4-6 Cosmo would still be played there if they reverted Shang and they reverted Shadow King. And we still got back to that. But what I will say, having Human Torch not get Killmongered is like so sick for that deck. I really can't stress that enough. Just Human Torch that doesn't get Killmongered is not like a buff, but like kind of a buff.
Oh, it's a buff.
Like it's pretty good for that deck. I'll say that much.
We had a conversation.
The other thing 4-6 Cosmo does. Oh, go ahead.
No, we had a conversation about the Human Torch point with. Is Human Torch still too good? Because I know in one of the top players circles, we were definitely discussing Torch nerfs for months, and it's resurfaced again. What do you think would be a healthy change for Torch? Because I think clearly we can see that the doubling text box might not be working. I mean, there's Torch Tribunal going around now. That's been very popular.
What do you mean very popular?
I see Torch Tribunal more than any other deck in Top Infinite.
Isn't it just
there's a lot
Cougar?
of it? Yeah.
No, there's six. There's like 10 people
picking it up
now.
Okay.
If you see a Doctor Strange in your game, you can expect Tribunal to be dropped.
Okay.
Yes.
So the basic premise here is, I think what the change to move did was and this is like concurrent with the release of Sparky. Right, it's hard to evaluate them in a vacuum or separately from each other because they happened in such a close timeline to each other. But what it basically did was say, when you draw Human Torch, you instantly win a lane. Just because of the cards in your deck, when you draw Human Torch, it's 24, 48, some really dumbass number. Once you get past 30, it doesn't matter what the number is. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, that there are very few decks against the number above 30 will actually matter. Denish, for those unaware, just typed in the chat 268. There's no functional difference in 99% of games between 268 and like 50. It's the same number. And so you have this card that is so clearly the centerpiece of the package. And I think what I miss, and I'm not saying they made a mistake with the move changes because I think they did the right thing. It is objectively, if you zoom out, really stupid that the cheapest one has the best scaling. That's super dumb. But the fact that it is still the best scaler now and also doesn't get Killmongered, it's like, oh, wait, it's still super dumb. I don't have a good solution because what I would want to do is take some of the power out of Human Torch and put it into Dagger and Vulture, right? But what would that be? Would doing 3-2 torch and then bringing back dagger scaling? That's like a net buff, isn't it? Do I want to do a net buff?
I think the torch nerf. Or Smlz, you go first.
All right,
and then
yeah, because I had one. The one I heard for torch change was he can only double once per turn. So you could only double him once on 3, once on 4, once on 5, once on 6. That's a maximum of 4 doubles.
I've seen that come up. I gotta tell you, the exact same part of me that says to Denish that it's better that Hela exists with these counters in there says that the thing I don't want to do with Human Torch is take away the cool shit that he does. I just don't want to do that. Like, what is the fun of this card? Where is the fun of the card located? The fun of the card is, holy shit, it's my final turn to the game. I activate Aranya, I activate Sparky. I also move it with some other card that I have. That is the biggest guy ever. That's the fun of the card. And if you're just like I've been the guy proposing things that are just like, what if we take the fun out of this for the sake of balance? Like, if you want an example of this way back in the day, I'm embarrassed about this because I brought it to Glenn Jones and he was like, you're an idiot. Not like in so many words, but like I had him on my podcast and I brought it up afterwards and he was basically just like, no, here's why this is stupid. And it really did change how I think about this. I was like, Mockingbird just shouldn't work with Thanos stones. And like as a baseline thing, as a balance issue, that would be great. It would be great if Mockingbird didn't work with Thanos stones. And we see them like being willing to adjust those lines with Victoria Hand not working with Thanos stones because like Jesus Christ, right? But there is a point at which when you do stuff like that, you are telling the players that their first idea for the card and how this wants to be played is something they are not allowed to do. And you just don't want to do that, right? You don't want to take away dreams. What you want to do is make sure the dreams don't ruin the metagame. And I don't think Move is doing that yet. I think this is like a minor balance issue. It's like a minor balance issue to me. You guys are making faces. When they revert the tech cards, are you going to be making the same faces?
If they revert Shadow King, it'll be fine.
Maybe they need to just, maybe this is a tech card thing. I mean, the best counter I've found for Move right now is just play normal Living Tribunal. It's like the one deck that consistently can go over the top. It's pretty high.
Like Clog. What are you doing?
Clog. I don't enjoy Clog.
Okay.
No one enjoys Clog.
Totally reasonable. But the point of Clog is not that you enjoy it, it's that they don't.
That's true.
Yeah. Wait, I actually have an interesting nerf to Human Torch that I think, but I don't know if it's like how significantly different from turning him to 3-2, because 3-2 removes like a lot of power from like his base and the doubling therefore gets nerfed. But if you change Aranya and Sparky to move and then add the power, how significant would that be to nerfing Torch? Because Torch right now with Sparky and Aranya are disgusting because the +4, +6 scaling that he gets from them essentially is multiplying even more and more. But if you delay that even just a little bit, is that enough to hit Human Torch?
I think it would do some damage to like the Torch Tribunal stuff. But in a normal move deck, it's like Torch is still so far and away the best thing to do those with that it's like honestly, the problem I have playing a move deck is like how much time I spend sandbagging those abilities waiting to draw Human Torch. Like that's the biggest thing that sucks about playing a move deck is you have these cool cards and you're just like, well, I probably shouldn't use them in case I draw the card that's actually better. Like, what am I going to waste this Sparky on a dagger? Am I an idiot? And I think that was like true.
Dagger is like still amazing when you move it an extra time. Like +6, +8. Like if you can get a valuable hit on it. But the problem is Torch is so far and away. Like
yes, it's
the better thing to do.
The issue. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. I do want to, another thing I wanted to touch on was these cards weren't changed in the OTA necessarily, but Stardust and Mobius, 3, 4, 4, 7. I think that that's not okay. I think they should both go down at least 1 point. And that's just because, well, okay, there's bias, but I've been saying this before Stardust. Every time I come up with, oh, I think Mobius and Stardust are terrible, I get told it's because I play Hela. I've been saying this about Luke Cage since before Stardust was a thing. Okay, I'm an OG in this conversation. Just because they made it apply to me doesn't mean it listen. But I think that Mobius at 3-3 and Stardust at 4-6 would make it so that those games are more winnable for the combo player. Because Stardust right now is ridiculous. Like, you just die if you're playing any greedy combo deck, which is fair. But what I've always found is tech decks, there's almost like a triangle in the metagame a lot of the time, where tech decks do really, really well into combo decks already. And then combo decks beat up Hella, and then Hella beats up tech decks. And so we've had this triangle. Now we gave tech decks an option that beats their bad matchup, which is Hella, and also negative. And tech decks almost don't have anything keeping them in check anymore. And so the counters that are being overstated.
You guys said that Living Tribunal move was like busted.
Well,
and now you're like, well, tech decks have nothing that beats them.
Busted. They
just removed tech decks. That's not a thing anymore. There are no tech decks.
I would argue that the Mobius Stardust deck is a tech deck.
Okay, but it's running the only 2 functional tech cards. And it loses to
But it is a tech deck.
Well, it doesn't run Enchantress, actually.
That's true. What do you think about 4-6 Stardust and 3-3 Mobius?
Okay, so I'll say this. I didn't like 3-4 Mobius. I saw that as them trying to, like, you remember when they like buffed Shadow King to 2-3 because Anti-Venom was good? And that's sort of like what I saw the Mobius thing as in reaction to like Surge and Mr. Fantastic. And it's like, no, you probably should just like solve those problems. It's like Mobius isn't really going to impact them. He's going to impact everything else more than he's going to impact them. And largely that is Mobius's biggest issue, is what he impacts are the decks that invest the heaviest into cost discounts later in the game. But I think my argument for why Mobius and Stardust are like palatable tech cards is that they are face up and they play into the snap and retreat ability of the actual game of Marvel Snap. Now, there are situations where Stardust is not that. And those are the situations where she is, I think, most obnoxious. Mobius is always that. Mobius is 100% of the time, this is a face-up card. You know you are going to be able to retreat before the cubes double, and you don't have to stay into the face of Mobius. I think that makes him a little more palatable to like a wider audience of people than stuff like Shadow King and Shang-Chi and Enchantress, which have inherent cube equity attached to them. That said, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it, but I would suspect that it would not necessarily instantly, but it would open the door to some awkward and unfortunate things. Because I think people look at Stardust and like, that's a really good card. But I don't think every deck can afford to be a Stardust deck. You have to be a very specific kind of deck to be able to afford it even now. And I think you have to be a very specific deck to be able to afford being a Mobius deck. And the weaker you make them, the more you force the other parts of the deck to carry them. And that's a tough ask, I think, if you want them to do their job.
Right. You mentioned that Stardust almost needs to be in a very specific kind of deck to function as a decent card. We've talked about this in the past couple episodes. I actually think that's a really good direction to take the game. We have a lot of things that are slowly becoming that. 5/8 Enchantress has to go in a ramp deck, or like a deck that's ramping. You have Shadow King, which sucks, but they tried to make it so he goes in a Surfer deck, or like, I don't even know where they wanted us to put Shadow King, to be honest. But even Red Guardian 3-2 looks or 3-0 looks awful, and it is. And same thing with Shang, but you're almost pivoting them more towards Merlin decks can actually justify them. And so now, when I see a deck, I know what tech they're probably running. And if they're not, it's a genuine, massive deck building disadvantage. And they're playing at a real disadvantage into every matchup that isn't what they're losing to. I guess what I'm trying to get at is I've found it a more enjoyable experience rather than every tech card fitting in every deck, almost narrowing the corridors that you can play these cards in. Do you think? What do you think about that?
I think that's down to their enablers, right? Like, I think a big part of why Stardust sees play in Invisible Woman First Steps is that it is the deck with the 2-cost scalers on the final turn of the game. It is the deck that is playing Surge most effectively right now. It is the deck that is able to do, like, if all else fails, if nothing else in your hand is big enough, you can play a 4/7 and your, Thena on the final turn of the game, right? I do not and did not see a lot of like, Sarah Tech has Stardust now. Like, you could do it, but it wasn't that good. Like, it was a thing you were allowed to do. So, like, the idea that, like, the only weakness to tech decks was Hela. No, Hela just had a free matchup there. The weakness tech decks have always had is like a Scream deck or whatever. That's just like, my numbers are bigger than yours and not Shang-Chi-able, right? Like, that's always been, it's not been like tech decks lose to Hela, lose to bigger combo decks. It's that the interplay between like a deck that has the ability to interact with people going taller and a deck that sacrifices that ability to gain relative matchup positioning against the first deck. That's usually the churn that Marvel Snap metagames have gone through. And I am fairly convinced that would still be happening. I don't see the need to relegate Stardust to 4/6 just yet. If you want to nerf Mobius, I don't know, I'm fine with it. But I do think he's just sort of a fundamentally more fair tech card design in doing what he does face up on the board. And like, yeah, I guess you can get got by Stardust. It just doesn't seem like it happens much, Maybe it happens to you more because you just play a bunch of Hela. But like the amount of Stardusts I've played for like a bunch of cube equity on the final turn, pretty minimal, and usually involve that location that flushes things away, or like a Sinister London or something.
Right. I do agree with what you've been saying, where you have to keep the card identity. You can't just nerf the crap out of Mr. Negative or Hela, because I'd quit the game if they removed Hela. Like I think I would genuinely quit the game. But you also need to consider that in these matchups, they don't need to be instant losses. Like,
they don't.
Traditional Hela,
but like, I would turn that around on you. Hela is the thing creating the instant losses. When I queue into Hela and I'm playing a normal deck, I'm dead. It doesn't matter anything that I've done, I'm dead. Do I think it's good that my only recourse is to put one card in my deck? God, no. But it's better than I'm dead. You know what I mean? Like, but is it good that there's one Stardust? No, there should be 5.
Right, but there's not actually, that doesn't actually solve the problem though, because you just shifted the problem over to me. Like, we're still having someone in the meta where they have a completely unwinnable matchup that they can't do anything about. Except now, like, I literally can't do any. The Grandmaster Enchantress is a good solution. They then made Enchantress. I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's
fine.
Yeah, but like, you'll be back to doing that, right? Like, give it a week and you'll be back to Grandmaster Enchantressing people and then laughing at them for daring to snap you in the first place.
Right, but even then, that deck is not good into anything else.
I agree with you, but what I'm telling you is that is how it feels to play against Hela. Like, I'm just telling you that. Like, that is what it is.
I agree with you. For sure.
And I think I can agree that both are problems, but I will argue that one of them is a little more pressing. Like, it's not good that that experience exists at all. I get that. But when mid-range decks can thrive, they create diversity sort of naturally, unless one of them is so far and away better than the rest of them, because the ones that are slightly bigger beat the ones that are more heavily reliant on tech. The Scream decks beat the ones that are smaller. The interplay of what various tech cards allow is where metagames can start to cycle. And the reason Hela is so bothersome to that cycle is because she just sits on top of it entirely. And then people just go play numbers decks, and it's like, oh, it's a Hela meta, I'll go play Mr. Negative. And then you start getting the cycle again because mid-range decks could beat Mobius. I don't think it's good that Stardust makes you have a terrible time. I just think that something needs to exist that a normal deck can play, because if it doesn't, Hela sits on top of things. And I think there is sort of inherently more diversity in a metagame dominated by mid-range cards than there is in a metagame dominated by what's up, dude? Here's 40 power. And this applies also to Sarah, for what it's worth. I think Sarah is the opposite end of the spectrum from Hela, but like just as sort of evil in this context. Like it's the same thing where it's like all the effort you put in over the course of the game doesn't actually matter. You moron, here are my cards that blow up your cards.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think it's really unhealthy. I don't think we need to go too far into potential Stardust changes and like shifting Hela, changing Hela, that stuff on this episode.
I actually do want to know what you would do.
We can move on to other.
Can we?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've talked about this in the past, but I'll do it again. My preferred change for Mobius and Stardust, because I think those are the two that most need to be changed. I want Mobius to discount your opponent's cards equally. And so if you are discounting a Gore down to 1, your opponent gets 5 cards in their hand down by 1. And so I think that's neat, because then you can save your tech for the last turn and actually hit things. I think that's at least try it. It's better than what we currently have, because that would, against negative, your opponent's hand is entirely 0. Like their whole hand is 0. That's the Mobius change I want.
Will that help them win that matchup?
I think it will. I think it absolutely will.
I kind of think
if you're in a, the only issue would be throwing prio, but if you can identify negative by like turn 3, which is pretty easy, you can throw prio, play Mobius, and then slam 7 cards that are all tech cards. Shang, Agor, Enchantress, and Iron Man. I think that it opens the matchup and makes it playable, but not instantly winnable. I think it does.
But what does that do for anyone who isn't playing those tech cards, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're playing a Mobius deck, yeah, like what if you're just playing Zoo or whatever? Like, oh, all my shit's free. It doesn't fucking matter because they have 2 Iron Men.
With Mobius?
I'm dead.
Do you mean Zoo with Mobius?
Yeah,
like
we're talking about
Zoo with Mobius?
We're talking about any hypothetical metagame where you would be playing a deck that isn't only tech into like a Mr. Negative.
Well, Zoo with Mobius, I don't think Mobius is a card that should go in Zoo to deal with negative. Like, I don't think that's the thing you should be able to do.
Yeah,
that's my take. You can run Echo, Super Scroll, Echo. There's other ways to do that. You don't need Mobius for that. There's decks that do need Mobius, but a lot of the decks that this wouldn't help beat it don't actually need Mobius. Like, you can run other things. That's what I think.
I want to see people run
Super Scroll. It might not be the most graceful. It might not be. This might not be the most. It's obviously this is just a concept. Like, it's not the most graceful thing. There's probably situations where it wouldn't work. But that was my Mobius change. I like the Stardust idea a lot better. KM, you look like you want to say something.
Oh,
is there anything else about the Mobius before I go to the Stardust?
Well, no, I just don't think it would work. I think it's a cool card. Like, that's a cool piece of text to put on a card. I just don't think it would do its job. Like, the decks that are largely discounting are discounting their things for like super specific reasons, such that the discounts not being generalizable. Like, there's a reason Sarah plays the cards it does. And if you had greater output against a Sarah deck, it wouldn't matter because they removed the output in the first place. And there's a reason that negative plays the cards it does. It's because the other half of them matters a ton too. And so I think that like it's a really cool piece of text. I just don't think it does Mobius's job. Like, it's awesome and they should make that card, but I just don't think it does the job.
I think. Wait, I want to.
Real quick, what if they do -1 cost +1 power? Because then you're also buffing the cards to keep up with not necessarily literally Iron Man, but like you can. Yeah. Okay. So something along those lines, I think, is way better than what they currently have. That's what I think. And Zen, do you want to butt in?
Yeah, I just want to say people are using Mobius as too much of a crutch to beat negative. I think like that is like people say Mobius is the only way to beat negative. I play Sauron. I literally cannot play this Mobius card. And I've won 8 cubers, many against negative. And it's like there are cards that will help the matchup. Like if Master Mold becomes a playable 2. If people start running Korg as a 1-drop. There are things that like prevent the Jane Foster from popping off. You can reasonably play Echo in a matchup to beat negative. You can reasonably play Jug Negasonic. Like those are all things.
Those were the two I was going to ask about. When you started talking about like, yeah, I beat the hell out of that. I'm like, how much of that is just Jug Negasonic?
but like Jug Negasonic Echo, there's other avenues that you can explore to beat negative, and it's much more of a deck building challenge that people just need to face head on, rather than just relying on Mobius Crutch. Because like people who say like Mobius is the only thing that can deal with negative, it's like it's the easiest thing to deal with negative. But like, if you're trying to beat negative, your deck should have some opportunity cost. Like, rather than just slotting in Mobius. Like, when I build my Sauron decks and I have to count for negative, I have to slam like Legion, I have to slam like Echo, I have to slam Jug. Like, I have to do something to make that matchup playable. Otherwise, you just accept the loss, right? And it's like, it's more meaningful when that thing isn't just Mobius, I'm gonna turn off all their cards.
Can I ask? This is like a little bit of a devil's advocate question, but I really just want to know the answer. Why is it that you think it should come with an opportunity cost, and why is that opportunity cost not met by it being a 3/4?
Because I don't think playing a 3/4 is that much of an opportunity cost. Like,
right. So like, 3/4, if it were a 3/3 again,
if it were a 3/3, I think it would
opportunity cost.
I think if they're understated, I think it is an opportunity cost. I think 3/3 is enough of an opportunity cost. I think Stardust being 4/7 makes it not that much of an opportunity cost to run it. Like 4/6, 4/5 is much more of an opportunity cost. But like when people are playing Mobius all the time, and I was playing Sauron, I'm just like, you play your Mobius, I'll slam down my 3/10. Like I don't care. Like that is a big opportunity cost. I think 3/4 is in a lot of other worlds where people are playing 3/10s, like significantly better than what people are playing on turn 3. It competes a lot better. I think if you're playing the priority game, 3/4 makes it a lot harder to interact with your priority game. 3/3 is like significantly like actually a downside if you're playing a 3/3 on 3. Versus like,
I think it's important. I think it's important to like figure out what you mean, because like when you phrased it straight up, it sounded like a condemnation of the idea that this card could exist. But then we get into it and you're like, actually, I think it's like 1 power off. And it's like, and like that's just feels like a very different conversation to me. Like, I think Mobius is probably 1 power too high.
Yeah,
but I also don't think it's like that big of a deal.
Yeah, but like, who's playing Super Scroll to counter? Like, who's saying Super Scroll should be a 4/3 to counter negative, right? Because if we're buffing Super Scroll and that takes like space away from nerf it, like countering negative, then it's like, okay, well now there's more than one. Like you said, how there should be 5 Stardust. There could be 5 Mobiuses. Like one is Echo, one is Super Scroll. So like if we just stop relying on Mobius so much to beat negative, we can actually start exploring these other avenues. Like, why is Super Scroll so bad? It's meant to be a tech card, right?
Super Scroll.
No one talks about Super Scroll. We're talking about beating negative. Like I don't talk about it because I play Sauron, but like no one else talks about it.
Well, you also don't talk about it because it doesn't do that. Right? Like the issue with Super Scroll into negative is it wins maybe 1 lane and they are, by virtue of discounting all their cards, attacking 3, right? And that's not always true, but like it's going to win the hell out of 1 lane. And then we talked about this with Enchantress, right? There's just not good 2s to pair with it. So it's like you have your guy that wins 1 lane and he's like, great, I won that lane. And you put it up a 2 with it and you're like, I won that lane and I played a lizard. And then you lost the other 2 lanes and you're just like, the whatever. So like it doesn't fill that role. But I also think it's important to talk about Mobius in the context of taking a huge dump on Sarah, which is objectively good. I feel like that's something we can all agree on as like an ethical thing to do.
I think it's ethical, but you don't have to turn off Sarah. Like, it's the same thing where if they made Sarah not a card, it's the same problem as I'm playing a game where Sarah is not a card. Like I don't like it. I'm in the remove Mobius and Stardust completely reworked, give them the same like areas but different abilities. I don't think 3/3 is enough, but it's a good start.
I think your Mobius pitch was cool as hell, but you said you had a Stardust pitch that was better?
Absolutely. I like the Stardust pitch. I know for a fact you don't, because I've heard you talk about it before. But my Stardust pitch, you can keep it at 4/7. I think it's wrong, but I don't care that much. Making either hit it lane or the other 2. That's my take. Zen is fading into the background right now.
I think 1 lane Stardust is a non-starter. Just full stop. I think that's just like,
why?
Because can we like be honest about what this card is and say that it's the anti-Hela card?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, having it hit one lane actually does still beat Hela. Like, it doesn't kill her. You don't have a 6/6 with nothing, but it still beats Hela. And what they could also that would actually frustrate. I think at a 4/7 it still beats Hela. You're favored. It's like 70-30. I can explain why if you'd like. That will be a detail. That'll take a while.
Like, are we talking like
70-30?
You can build a deck with this and Professor X and beat Hela? Because I believe
No.
But
normal Hela.
You're saying
straight up. If you throw
put
it in
4/7 Stardust in a deck and you draw it, and you're 70-30 if it only affects one lane.
If you have enough points to beat like 20 in another lane, then yeah, absolutely. I do think that. And the reason I think that, I can go into the Hela shenanigans if you want. So the deal with Hela's biggest problem is always winning the Hela lane, because the Hela lane is like it's a 6/6. You're not getting a lot of points there. And so if you can identify the Hela lane very easily if you know how to play against it. This card, I think the matchup swings back at low level, which is an argument you can make that Hela is very favored into it at low level. And so maybe make it so everyone has to play Stardust but me. How about that? But no, at low level, sure, you could say that's a problem. But
can you define low level here for me?
Pre-infinite, or like not top 20,000. That's low level for me. Like not literally, not everyone knows how to beat Hela, which fair. But what you can do is you can just point slam one lane and then Stardust the other one, either on the last turn or turn 4. The only way that the Hela player would adapt to that is by halfway through the game shifting their Hela lane, which means now both of their Hela lanes are very weak. It's not a lot of points, and so they get one infinite. You either have to go wide on the 2 lanes that don't have Stardust, or if you see them go tall in one lane, beat that lane because that's the Hela lane. And so the Hela lane usually has like 20 to 25 points, and that is very, very reasonable, especially for like end of turn. You can get 20 to 25 points in a lane and Stardust in another one. That is a perfectly reasonable thing. I genuinely think that if you made Stardust either hit one lane, or if that doesn't work and they test it, make it hit the 2 that she's not in.
So
that way my Hela revivals go in the Stardust lane.
Let's accept the premise here, right? That you're right about that and it would work. If it doesn't work for 99% of the people who play this game, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
let's assume that you're right. Either way, if it doesn't work for anyone who's not like really good and really tapped in, it might as well not actually exist for everyone else.
Yeah, that is the problem. At a lower level, it does become
Stardust
hard.
For what it's worth, because I do think that would still shit can Hela, and it would be like a meaningfully different, and maybe there'd be more interesting things going on. I don't hate it, but one lane Stardust would not be good enough to make it be a meaningful card to put in your deck anywhere but top infinite metagaming, specifically on the North American server, specifically against the people in this call. Like,
well, it still hits everything that isn't Hela just as well as single lane stuff. Like your BP Zola, you're still beating that. You're still beating Wong stuff
Nimrod,
with White Tiger,
Nimrod,
all the destroy stuff. It still beats those. It's just specifically Hela, which, by the way, in my opinion, is a matchup that should be beating Tech anyways. Not all the time, hence you have Stardust. And I think that you can learn to win it. Like, it's a learnable thing. You can absolutely learn it. Most people aren't going to because it's the game they play on the toilet, which is fine. That's fine. That's completely fine.
It's just like, if you're on the balance team, you don't balance for me. You balance for Joe taking a shit. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the guy, that's the person who it's important to balance for, because you don't want that dude to sit down and take a shit and throw his phone against the wall and have an aneurysm on the toilet and die like Elvis because he got Hela'd, okay? Like, you just don't want that. It's a bad outcome. And Xenaid, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think one lane Hela or one lane Stardust is enough. But I pitched a way funnier Stardust change for Denish, which was don't let cards be summoned here, but Hela can still target that lane. So that way when Hela fails to spawn stuff, it's just like, oh shit, a Hela bug. When in reality, she just targets the Stardust lane. So basically, everything that spawns in the Stardust lane just vanishes. And I think That would be amazing. It would be the best piece of tech because then they're not going somewhere else. They're going into the cosmos, into Stardust.
You've invented an even more obscure and confusing thing for 99% of players. 99% of players are going to post. They're going to post on Reddit like, where does why Captain Marvel no move? Like,
but then what they do is they click on Stardust, and then that's where the cards went. So like, you know how Blob absorbs the cards? They click on Stardust, and you can see that. Oh shit! There's the Infinite.
Might as well have Stardust gain the power as well.
They should make a blob for your opponent's discarded cards, where it's just like the world's worst tech card of all time.
Like endless, but on steroids.
Yeah. 0 people play this tech card because it costs 6 and has 0 power unless your opponent does this. But it's specifically everyone on High Ladder plays it whenever Denish comes back for 2 weeks. It's like, all right, let's get out Blob for Denish.
Yeah, and it comes off Kang, and it comes off Hulkling, and it comes off Patriot, and I still have to play against it. Just no one else does.
Yes.
Yeah, those are the tech cards that piss me off the most. We could move off of the...
I too hate the tech cards that beat me.
Yeah. One quick thing, just quick rattling off rapid fire. If you could keep only 2 changes from this patch and the rest get reverted, which 2 would you all keep? I would keep probably Enchantress and Negasonic. Is that the consensus?
What you said.
Like, Ench Negasonic. I mean, if I was biased, I'd be like Ench Shang-Chi, but they should revert Shang, honestly. I'll say it.
Mine is Enchantress Negasonic, but I like Shang only hitting 1 card, actually.
Alright,
but
so...
make him a 4/7. He could be a 4/7.
No!
My
No! He could
no,
be
real
probably,
talk, like 4/5.
4/4, I think.
Get this man out of the kitchen.
I think it could be a 4/4 reasonably, hitting 1 card.
Yeah.
4/7 is like...
That's Stardust
I mean,
level.
that is... You have invented the best card ever thought of in Marvel Snap history. Like,
no, that would be good. Isn't that Mr. Negative?
You have guaranteed that Shang-Chi... This is the only way I could think of to get Shang-Chi's play rate to go up. Like, I thought it was just sort of like a flat variable. But you make him a 4/7, there's not a single deck he's not in. He's just in there. That's actually, this is good from Denish because you make him a 4/7. Do you know whose spot he's taking? He's taking Stardust's spot, baby. He's metagaming this.
That was the point. That's the goal. Get Stardust out of the decks, put Shang in. I can beat Shang. That's fine. Put Fenris back for all I care. I liked when Fenris was a thing.
Yeah, I know you did because it wasn't good enough to beat you, which is exactly the point.
I do like that you touched on Shang-Chi's play rate because I do think that's a little significant. Play rate is obviously important, and Shang has always had the highest. I think the bigger issue with Shang-Chi personally is fear of Shang. The fear of Shang is insane. Like, they don't even have it, and I have to play around it. And so making it only hit 1 card well, obviously he's really shit right now. And so I'm not scared of it for a different reason, that nobody's running it that isn't not in the 1% or whatever we were going with the metaphor for toilet gamers. But I think making a Shang change that makes him not terrifying is also perfectly reasonable. Like, I don't think he needs to hit every card in the lane. I'm fine with him hitting every card in the lane. I don't think it's like a problem, but being scared of Shang every game and not like it's something to consider that tech cards have like the psychological factor as well. And I think that there's a way to balance the tech cards without having to, make them a 4/2 that hits 1 card. Zen, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think Shang just needs to seem worse than he actually is. Because, like, everyone just agrees, like, it was wrong to be playing Shang. But then all these shitters just keep playing Shang. And I'm like, playing around Shang in fucking VHAM, like, why the fuck is this VHAM deck running Shang? And it's just like, oh, because it'll do his job and it'll win, like, the fucking Hulkling lane on Gamma Lab. It'll like do random shit a lot of the time. And it's like people think its effect is too good, when in reality, like all the high elo people are just shitting on the Shang players. Like, man, why is this deck running fucking Shang-Chi? And it's just like, it just needs to seem worse so that way you don't die to random Shangs. Because I hate being scared of that guy, because I shouldn't be.
Alright, so we got one more tech card that we wanted to touch on. Ghost. Cam, you've been playing a lot of end of turn lately. So
yeah.
Have you ever been gotten by Ghost?
What are you talking about?
Has the card Ghost ever affected your board?
That's not a card.
Not a card?
What are you talking about? I've never heard of it in my life.
Alright. I think that says enough about that tech card. On to the next part.
Whoa. Hold on.
Denish is mad. Denish is mad because he wanted to get a ghost defender in here. He was like, "You skipped me because I have so many good ghost jokes and I need to get them off."
Okay, so yeah, obviously, Ghost is really bad. Ghost is awful. Everyone knows Ghost is awful. For anyone who doesn't know, recently they made it so that Ghost, I think it's a 3/4 now. If it's a 3/3, that's even more embarrassing. But I think it's a 3/4, and it turns off the ability of end of turn cards. That's terrible because if you turn it off early, you're gonna miss the ones later, and if you turn it off late, they already scaled. KM, do you have any ideas on how to make Ghost actually hit end of turn cards, or just scrap it and stick with Shadow King?
You guys told me, we're going to point and laugh at Ghost. We're going to do some ha-has. She sucks. That was the brief I got before we started this segment. But I regret to inform you, I'm going to try to make an actual point here, which is you talk about how Ghost is so obviously dog shit at 3/4. And then you advocate for other cards to get obviously dog shit stat lines that have similar, that have more generalizable, but fairly similar effects. And I think that largely a lot of what would happen if you did some of those things to those cards, like we had the conversation about Rogue, and 3/3 Rogue is just as bad as 3/4 Ghost. And I think that it speaks to... I think a lot of people look at the vanilla curve and they're like, those are the actual stat lines that you need to be competitive in this game. But when you look at what threes actually are, they range from 3/5 with upside to 3/8 with moderate downside. That's what threes actually are in this game. Or if you're Xenaid, 3/10s that are just 3/10s. And when you look at what fours actually are, things get a little bit more diverse, because there's a bunch of like build around fours. Like Gwenpool is meaningfully different. There aren't as many just like, I'm a 4 that has a bunch of stats, because the amount of stats you need to justify a 4 is Shang-Chi-able. And so you end up having them be more diffuse. Like it's a bunch of stats, but it's diffuse. So the 4 itself is not that big. Largely what I'm saying is, I think the margins are a lot smaller for like a Stardust and a Mobius to actually be relevant before they become Ghost, if that makes any sense. Like, I think the margins are quite thin for those cards.
That does make sense, but also, I don't think the issue with Ghost is Ghost. Like, you can make Ghost a 3/5 or a 3/6, and I think there's maybe not a 3/6, but I think there's still a good chance that card doesn't see any play. Like, why? The issue isn't
3/6 Ghost.
Yeah, 3/6 Ghost maybe, but like 3/5, I don't think that card still sees play, because like it's the text box. It's not doing anything. With most of your 3/4s and 3/5, if you hit something, you're actually getting a benefit. She's not even getting a benefit. She's just turning it off. And so it either already scaled, or there's more of them in other lanes. Is there like a, maybe end of turn, this has the abilities of all of your opponent's end of turn cards? Like, what are we...
Super Scroll? I'm about to play that, and they're going to have it.
Yeah, like, how do we make it... How do we make it playable?
I mean, 3/5 goes a long way. Like, I know it sounds like I'm repeating myself, but like when we talk about what the actual vanilla stat line is, people act like it's 3/4. It's not. It's just not. It's 3/5. If you want someone to think about putting a card in your deck, it's got to be at least of a tier with its competition. Why would I play a card that is a 3/4 when I could play Copycat unless that card is doing awesome stuff? And this also cycles into it. Cards like Mobius and Stardust interact with locations. A card like Ghost never does. A card like Rogue very rarely does. So they have less of a feeling like they actually did anything in a normal game than a card like Mobius or a card like Stardust, where you can actually run into situations where they do matter that are totally agnostic of what your opponent is playing. In other words, they deserve better stats more, and they get better stats less.
I think I have a take. I think Ghost will be playable at a 2-4. I think Ghost will be playable even at 2-3. Like 2 costs, because you can hit the scalers earlier without having as much of a downside. You can play 2+1 on turn 3 and hit the Athena right after. Feels like that is a more reasonable use. And you can slot her in on your turn 5 a lot easier with an actual impactful play, like a 3+2. I think Ghost, the problem is it's 3 costs. I think if Ghost was 2 costs, she would be in a lot more decks. I don't know what the stat line would be, but I do think it's just the timing of when you play her is much more relevant than the actual stat line of that card when it is played.
I agree with you, but also I think that is like a sentence you can say thanks to the differences in how they've made 2s and 3s. When you look at the vast majority of 3s that see play, they are stats upside. Like they start at 3-4 at the very smallest and get bigger. And when you look at 2s, every single one of them is basically a 2-3 with upside. They only just started doing 2-4s with upside. So there's just less inherent competition for that spot. So I agree it would work, but I think the reason it would work isn't so much down to timing, it's down to competition. There are less good things at 2 that you are actively losing out on by not running in order to run this card. Whereas at 3, there are so many good 3s that you are losing out on if you want to play it.
Yeah, but I think with Tech, the competition's a little different, the argument of competition, because Tech is a timing, like Shadow King, right? Like you're not playing him on 3 to compete with other 3s. It's like, what can you reasonably play alongside the Shadow King? And I think that's the same thing with Ghost. Like, even if she didn't have competition at 3, I don't think she would see play at 3, just because, you can't pair very many things that go well with its effect. Its effect isn't very powerful, so when you're doing a 3+3 with Ghost, like, that sucks. So, like, you want to have the 2-cost slot, right? That's the same thing with, like, Shadow King, because Shadow King has such a big opportunity cost. He needs to be a 2 to function, because his effect is just not good enough, because there's not enough things to pair with him at 3. And I think it's the pairing argument, not necessarily the competition. Because competition, when you're talking about 3-4s, 3-5s, and stats, is tempo play, right? Ghost is reactive in nature, and so is Shadow King. So those two arguments kind of contradict each other because they're different. They just go along different lines, essentially, right? They're not contradictory, but different lines.
I definitely buy the Shadow King comparison. Like, this is a narrow enough use case that it can cost 2. I buy that. Like, I think that's the most convincing argument that I've heard for like what should be done to this card, which is just like, it's the analogy to Shadow King. So let's make the opportunity cost and the ability of you to pair it with other stuff as high as opportunity cost low, pairing high.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I think that
also I laughed when you said 2-4 because like it'd be playable at 2-4, dude. If they just cut an energy off of it, that'd be pretty good. Yeah.
Right. I forgot about that. I forgot that 2-drops are just like so egregiously bad. Like I've been trying to look for big 2-drops to play forever, and like I'm not like I've literally been thinking about playing first Ghost Rider into Luke Cage because I'm just like I want to play a big 2-drop. Like it takes so much work. I could play.
See, that's the argument I was trying to make. Like if it was like a 2-3 or 2, like they're all bad. So like you're just not losing anything by playing it.
All right,
yeah,
we covered a lot of tech cards in this podcast. Now it's time to cover some of your decks. We asked you guys for some decks to either play around with. What are some ideas for decks you had? They don't have to be like cutting edge, but they just have to be interesting, and we picked a few of them. The first one is Zoo. So I know I have talked about Ancient One Zoo before on this podcast. I like it. I have a question. How do you guys like Ancient One Zoo? What would that entail?
can you read the list real quick first for our listeners?
So the list is 1 second. The list is Ant-Man, Spider-Ham, Squirrel Girl, Dazzler, Herbie, Marvel Boy, Kyera, Prodigy, Shauna, Ancient One, Kazar, and Blue Marvel.
Yeah, I think this deck's really cool. I like the concept because the whole thing with Zoo is you're very consistent, and you're very consistently slightly below everyone else. And usually you use these Mockingbirds and Gilgameshes to like slam one lane, but what this is doing is it's almost, rather than your high rolls slamming one lane, it's just raising everything. And so instead of one Blue Marvel, you have 3. And I like that as a concept. Like it is addressing a genuine concern when building Zoo. I don't know if the Kyera is necessary right now, but but I like the rest of it is really cool. I imagine it was made before Killmonger ceased to exist. What do you think about it, Zen?
Yeah, I think Zoo is one of those decks that suffers from not enough good low-cost cards. Like, if you had bigger 2-drops to play with Blue Marvel and such, I'd be playing with Zoo a lot more. Instead, I'm stuck with these shitter 1-drops that all I do is, like, spam wide across the board. Like, I have to play Black Cat to find points. And then, like, if I'm going to 2-drop and spending double the energy, it's Lizard. Like, it's kind of depressing, I think. And I'm just trying not to be, depressed by playing shit cards, you know what I mean? Like, I already do that by playing my archetype, so why would I, like, look for that elsewhere?
Yeah, and I do feel like Ancient One, it doesn't fully fill the gap, but you do get a really good 2-cost to play on the last turn. It's just not...
Yeah, you got one good 2-cost, and then you're playing Herbie.
Dazzler's a 2/8.
Well, yeah, that's why I said Herbie.
That's like...
Herbie's not bad.
Yeah.
I guess I'll be the bad guy here. I'll be the Simon Cowell of this segment and say, look at all the effort they're going in to make one Cerebro.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you
Cerebro
keep running into with this deck. Like, fundamentally, where it's just like, if I'm going to play like a gimmicky deck that only buffs certain things, I'm going to do the one that says +3 on it. I'm going to do that one.
More consistent. It is
Is
more
it?
consistent than Cerebro. Yeah, you don't
know
die to
about that.
Is it?
Monster
You're
Island.
really relying on Ancient One and Blue Marvel draws to get +3 instead of just Cerebro. Yeah. I played quite a bit of Ancient One Zoo before Cerebro. I thought it was decent. It puts out a lot of points. I think with Cerebro, the stack isn't looking too hot. I think the thing that makes it more interesting to be an Ancient One Zoo player as compared to a regular Zoo player is, I think, the Marvel Boy and the Kyera spots. One, I don't think you really want Marvel Boy in this deck because you want to be playing your Shauna and Squirrel Girl late, assuming Killmonger gets reverted. And second, you can afford to run interaction pieces. I mean, the only thing you really need is you need your turn 6 free, so you can't really play a reactive tech like Shang-Chi, or obviously not Enchantress in this list, but you could definitely run something like a Mobius in here. You could run something that gives like interaction. You could run location tech. You can run definitely some stuff that gives you more game. The problem is end of turn is kind of better at that. So I think Zoo is kind of filling the role where it's the second best at two things. It's the second best deck at fitting in just big ongoing tech cards, and it's the second best deck at giving a +3 board wide buff. I think that's a little bit of the problem with Zoo right now.
Second best.
Second, yeah. It's the second. No, like, here's something that I will say for this. I am a big fan of Marvel Boy. I keep wanting to play him, and I keep having to cut him. And I think it's ridiculous that we have gotten to a point where, like, remember, they nerfed that card. Remember? They were like, Marvel Boy is so good, we have to nerf it. How have we gotten here? And I feel like genuinely some of that is down to Cerebro, where it's like, when you look at these decks, the thing that's holding this deck back is not Killmonger. It's a deck like Cerebro or a deck right now like Sauron, which is just like, nice numbers, idiot. My numbers are bigger. And I think like that's always sort of the issue with a deck like this, because in other games there is a sense of tempo of like I can end the game. But in Marvel Snap, you can't end the game, and there aren't enough ways for a deck like this to snowball its ability to put points on the board early into something more meaningful. What I'm saying is Marvel Boy should say +2 on it.
Nope. Hell no. Hell no. I think this list needs like Gilgamesh. I think Zoo can actually compete with Sauron on points. The bad version of Sauron, actually. The good version of Sauron, it's fucked. But the bad version of Sauron, you can win the Gilgamesh lane and then you go wide because Sauron can only play for 2 lanes, really. Unless you're playing the good version, which then you get at least 20 in all 3 lanes. But, we don't talk about that one because that's kind of cringe. And it plays tech.
Yeah, I also think, looking at Marvel Boy, we joked about Marvel Boy +2 for a while. That was one of our, anticipated Michael changes where it's just like, what? What the heck happened? Thinking about it, with Cerebro at +3, I don't think Marvel Boy at +2 is that heinous. I think it's
I'm running it in Sauron. If you guys keep talking about this, it is Zabu, Sauron, Zero, Maw, Armor, and I'm slamming a fucking Marvel Boy down. And it's gonna be fucking good.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, are we happy Cerebro's +3? I mean, a lot of us not the biggest fan of that deck.
I love Cerebro being +3. I just want to say it. Not a problem.
Your relationship with my close personal friend Michael Majors, who I've never talked to in my life, is very funny to me because you immediately develop this thing where you would refer to him on a first name basis, which is insane to me because from the little I know about him, I do a podcast with Jerry Thompson. Jerry Thompson used to do a podcast with Majors, right? So 100% of people I know who know this guy, which is a non-zero amount, Majors, that's his name. Nobody calls him Michael. Jerry calls him Michael occasionally as a digression from everyone calling him Majors. It is an astonishing thing to stumble upon, all of you guys just being oh yeah, Michael.
Michael, man.
What?
We call you KM, we don't call you Best.
Why we
you have correctly identified that most people are not referred to by their last names. Yes. However,
you're right.
In some cases, it still does happen.
We should have just known. You're right.
Well, he is actually quite famous. In card game circles, he is a name. No joke.
He made Flora not hit the deck. I know him quite well too.
He's genuinely one of the best Magic players on the planet. This is a guy who is almost certainly better at any of us at any card game we've ever picked up. Former Platinum Pro back when that was a thing for Magic, the highest level of pro play you could ever achieve. This is a very serious guy, which is a long way of saying, shout out Michael.
Yeah.
Michael I've been liking his OTAs, so he can keep on Michael, Majors, whatever. Keep making those OTAs that get me interested.
I've been happier with Michael, and he's given us content. So very good content, and this is over it.
All right.
I feel like I've done that.
And they're not reverting his changes. It's crazy. They're keeping his stuff, which is good. I like it, but usually they do something ridiculous, like Cerebro +3. Obviously, it's not his changes, but as soon as he joined the balance team, they made Scar at 7/12, and Hella broke. And then
they do
I don't know.
Every
it's been
time
a running
they add
bit.
someone new. That's my theory. My theory is what happens is every time someone new joins the balance team, they make a change, and someone is that might break Hella, and they're it's fine. And then it breaks Hella, and then they're all right. And then that's it's their hazing process.
They hazed Michael, so we gotta have his back. We gotta have Michael's back. Can't blame him for the changes. It's the team hazing it. We got it. That's our new narrative.
It's not just Hella though. Every time he does something crazy, they keep it. Cerebro +3 is another example. That
so
wasn't
we're on 1-3.
We don't know.
Okay,
oh yeah, Sauron.
You're calling him crazy. If they're not actually breaking the gate, if they're not actually wow, this deck's busted, are they actually crazy?
Have we called for a new rebirth? I don't think we've called for any reverts. I don't think it's been outrageous enough that we've like summoned reverts.
I don't know. All I know is that it's a lot more fun to see these OTAs than the old +1, -1. This is going to a 5/5. This is going to a 2/2, and the occasional big swing with like Adam Warlock. But it's
That's a good card.
Really dunking on my close personal friend Glenn Jones there, who I have talked to more than once in my life. I will say that much.
Next up,
Glenn or Jones?
I call him Glenn. Well, I mean, I call him Baby G.
Oh,
but
so you
like,
can call him by his first name, but not Michael.
Yeah, that's just how it works.
Okay.
Michael's name is Majors. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's weird. It's weird.
All right. Next up is Clea, Nicholas Scratch. I don't know what the Nick Scratch is really doing, but this is similar to what I saw player Coco Bird run when Clea came out. It's a Hitmonkey deck that is trying to use Black Swan to discount multiple Flames of the Fall team, play a Hitmonkey to win one lane, Big Werewolf wins another lane. Nicholas Scratch and Hulkbuster, very suspect, as you can tell by the question mark in the name, but as a concept of Hitmonkey wins one lane, Werewolf wins the other lane, what are your thoughts on a Clea spell deck?
Coco Bird beat my ass with a Hulkbuster that moved 2 werewolves by night. I don't get to talk shit about this deck. I'm sorry. I lost to literally the Hulkbuster into having enough space to move 2 werewolves line. It was crazy.
That's a pretty cool line.
I do think, yeah, having so many cards that remove themselves from the board is neat. I mean, with the Werewolf by Night, I don't have a strong opinion of this deck, to be honest. It just looks kind of cool. I like that we're doing Clea stuff. I think, well, obviously this is just a deck for fun. I don't think Black Swan Clea will ever be like the thing to be doing, unless they make, I don't know, maybe Michael gets his hands on Clea and makes the Fall Teens -6. But like, I can't see realistically currently Clea and like Black Swan being a real thing. But this is a pretty cool way to do it. I mean, you have the synergy. You're running 4/1 costs and Merlin, so you're definitely getting Black Swan value like most games. And the Werewolf's big because you're getting the cards off the board. So I do think it's pretty neat, pretty inoffensive deck. I do like the Hulkbuster edition. I know Coco runs it. Kahora is a card here too. I guess we'll read off real quick. We didn't read off the cards, right?
Yeah, the cards in this deck are America Chavez, Clea, Nicholas Scratch, Nico Minoru, Black Swan, Hulkbuster, Merlin, Sage, Marvel Boy, Hitmonkey, Werewolf by Night, and Kahori.
I think you're talking a lot of shit for a deck that, like, you're like, this is a for fun deck or whatever, but like, the floor on a Merlin Werewolf deck is quite high. Like,
oh really?
This deck is doing stuff. Like, I don't know. You're acting like it's like, this is just a joke, gag, haha deck. I'm pretty sure this deck's just good. Like, is it the greatest deck on earth? No, but like, I could very easily see like a Derek doing well with this, right? Where it's just like, what's up? I'm doing point allocation on the final turn of the game in a different way for the 800th different deck list I've ever made. This deck would work. Like, between this deck and like the other decks we're looking at, this is the one that is like, you could play this, I could play this, and it wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, but that's just the Merlin package, and it's just like I think the Merlin package is done worse. But I'm a fan of Clea. I'm a fan of the Marvel Boys stuff. It's just feels like it's not enough ones for like the deck building process, and I think that's like a little awkward because like Marvel Boys, what is he hitting? Like, are you happy with him hitting? Like, maybe if the +2 buff, instead of doing 3 ones, is 2 ones, like, maybe it makes Marvel Boy significantly better. Like, it's more concentrated, but it doesn't just buff as many cards, like, kind of the Ironheart direction. And then this deck might, like, soar into the stratosphere. I also think, like, the Kahori is a little weird without Kate Bishop. So there's, like, a few synergy pieces that could be improved, I think. Kate Bishop also helps the Werewolf and helps the Hitmonkey as well. So maybe there, but I mean, it's a deck I would play, and that's not saying very much.
What can we point out that we have hit yet another Marvel Boy should give +2 power deck?
Maybe that's next on the bingo card. Anyways, the third deck that we would like to talk about today is the newest iteration. Well, not the newest, but another iteration of the Cook deck. So Mysterio on 5, Sasquatch Mockingbird on 6. This one I found to be a little bit more interesting, considering it's running cards like Debris, which could also hinder opponent's clog space and make that Mockingbird cost like 1. So you're able to play, say, 2 Moleman, Rocks, Mockingbird, and Sasquatch on the last turn. That the Rocks are getting buffed by a Patriot, Debris is getting buffed by the Patriot. What do you guys think of this list?
Yeah, just before we start, I'll read off the cards because I do think there's a couple things here that are pretty cool. It's America Chavez, Okoye, Toxie, Doxie as your mini buffers, and then it's Mysterio, Brood, Patriot, almost like a mini Patriot package with Surfer, Debris, Mole Man, which Debris and Mole Man synergize with the Patriot, and it's a whole bunch of 3s for your Surfer. And then it runs Gwenpool, Mockingbird, Sasquatch as closers on the last turn, or not in Gwenpool's case, but. Yeah, so what do you think?
Who are you asking?
Anyone. Zen, go.
Okay.
I am confused. Because I've never played this archetype, really. I'm a Patriot enjoyer. I just feel like there should be a Sauron in here, you know? And, you gotta turn off some ability somewhere. But, it's like Patriot sitting Brood and Mysterio. I just don't think the +2 and, 4 cards is good enough anymore. I think Smlz digged up an old deck of mine from Twitter, or X they call it, from 2023, I believe. And it was Sauron Patriot. And back in the day, playing Shocker on 2 into Patriot on 3 was holy shit, I got the tempo on you. And this deck just feels like Patriot is buzz, I'm gonna go to sleep. I think Patriot's only really felt good with Moonstone. And if you can double its effect, it's really good. But the Patriot server package feels like it's trying to mix good things with a distant memory.
I do think this is another example of Cerebro being just better. Patriot, yeah. To give it credit, it's also hitting Mole Man and Debris Rocks, which that's more than most Patriot decks that aren't running Ultron. But yeah, I can see a universe where Patriot is just not enough. Because, you're buffing maybe 6 cards max, occasionally, sometimes. And that makes him, a 310? Or, what is it, 12? The 314. 314 is not bad, but Xenaid plays a 310 on curve. So it's I don't know. I just don't know if it's actually getting enough stats onto the board to justify it. It does have 2 triple scalers, which I think is worth mentioning, with Mysterio and Brood. So you can get Toxie, Doxie, Okoye, Chavez, well, not Surfer, but those buffs on and it sticks twice. Or 3 times rather, which I mean it's a neat synergy. But yeah, I'm just not convinced Patriot on its own is Cerebro's just bigger. That's how I feel.
I think the other thing you run into with a deck like this is you're doing Patriot Surfer stuff in here. And what you're giving up to do that is effectively the Merlin part of the deck. And I think what I keep coming to is if I'm going to be doing Patriot Surfer, am I actually sure that that's any better for my game plan than a Merlin? And I'm not. I'm just not, because I like the ability to not have my shit get clogged or flush away my Debris Rocks and get extra energy. And I think that largely what this deck runs into, I know people are going to look at this and expect me to be Toxie, what a piece of shit. You can't play that. That's not the bad part of the deck. I'm not nearly as opposed to that as I am to the concept of trying this archetype, which is so liable to clog you without a Merlin in it. You need your own out to this stuff. And I think Brood Merlin stuff, that's dope. I love going from 3 to 4. I love that. I love flushing away Debris Rocks. But I think what I'm getting at is like the right payoff for this is Merlin and not Patriot. That's where I'm at with it.
I definitely think that the Patriot needs some help. I mean, it's kind of gone by the wayside in the sense that if you're playing these lower power, like Mysterio, Brood targets, it's just better to Merlin them. And if you're playing, like, a lot of them, it's just better to invest in the Cerebro game plan instead. But on to our last deck that we have today. It is Carter C2. So this is a bit of an interesting deck based on interactions. So the interaction that you need to know is that ongoing, specifically Cerebro and Carter, work from left to right. So if Cerebro is to the left of Carter, Carter will take her Cerebro buff and buff the cards behind her without breaking Cerebro. However, if Carter is to the left and Cerebro is to the right, then your Cerebro is broken. I know there's some interesting choices in this deck, particularly the Pixie, but what do you guys think about Carter specifically in C2, and do you have any thoughts on Cerebro as a whole?
I think this is a question of like necessity. C2 already has a lot of force multipliers built into the deck. Like, this is already the Cerebro deck that is better at multiplying its own points by virtue of being a Mr. Sinister deck, by being a Brood deck, right? It doesn't lose to not having points most of the time. And so if you're like, well, let me put this thing in that gets me more points, my question is, why? Like, what is that actually? Like, I know it's getting you points, but when do you need them? What matchups do you need those points for? And so this is like actually like, I think, a very good deck building lesson where it's like, points aren't just valuable in the abstract. You need a reason to care about the thresholds that you're hitting. And Cerebro too, unless there's like overwhelmingly, if I'm playing Cerebro 2 and I do my stuff, I'm not losing on points. I'm losing on Red Skull or Echo or something that prevents me from doing the thing that I'm doing. That's not the reason I'm losing is not related to I didn't have enough numbers. And I think it's about metagame positioning in that sense, where like a deck like this that is bigger than 90% of the things that it plays against, it just doesn't need it.
I do agree. I think that the point there was half gotten when the deck was built, in the sense that, yeah, the Carter's completely unnecessary, but it does do something that's a little neat that I'd love to hear your take on, KM. This deck seems to be prioritizing cube rate as well as our favorite stat cubes per minute, with the Uatu as well as the location control and Nico and Storm, where you can snap turn 1, and nobody leaves on a turn 1 snap unless you're playing like a known Cerebro, known Hela. Like, then people start leaving. But in general, people don't leave when you snap turn 1. And so with a Uatu, knowing that you're not getting screwed by those locations, the only thing you can really get screwed by is an Echo, Enchantress, Red Skull. And so I think it is cool as a concept that, other than obviously the Carter being a little unnecessary, you've got so many things that are stopping you. You don't lose to Afflict either with the Luke Cage, which, I mean, that's kind of just like run of the mill. But what do you think about the concept of building these decks around cube rate rather than win rate?
First of all, I think Uatu rocks. I think if you wanted to show me a deck where you were like, is there a single deck where Uatu is even a quasi-justifiable choice? This is the deck you show them. You probably make some edits, but you show them Cerebro too. And then you explain what you just explained. And I think you could genuinely make a compelling argument in this case. I do think that people think of cube rate as an inherent thing to decks in a way that is not accurate. There are decks that at a certain snapshot may have a higher cube rate than other decks that may be related to their win rate and may be not related to their win rate. But largely, I would argue the biggest determinant of cube rate is whether your opponents know what you're doing. That's the biggest thing. You mentioned, like, once you start getting known as a Hela player, then they start leaving. That impacts your cube rate. That's not the deck's fault. The deck's cube rate is getting worse in that scenario, but it has nothing to do with the quality of the deck and everything to do with the context around it. And so I find it hard to buy analysis by cube rate in part because it's so individualized, and in part because it fundamentally changes depending on how known the thing you're doing is it is not an inherent quality of the deck. It is something that is very relevant to like hidden information and things like that. And Xenaid is a great example of this. Xenaid's like, check out my cube rate. If everyone knew that he was playing like a Juggernaut or a Negasonic or an Electra or whatever it is he's got in there, it wouldn't be the same. And when you're talking about decks that end up at the top of a metagame, those are decks that are able to withstand everybody knowing what they're doing. 100% of people that I play with an Invisible Woman First Steps, they know all 12 cards in my deck. And it overcomes that. And so there is an element of like, I think it is a lot harder for a deck that is reliant on that surprise to make it to a consistent position at the top of a metagame, which would be my argument against the Uatu C2 thing, right? Like people would start to know what that means if it was ever good enough. That said, if you wanted me to say there was a good Uatu deck, I do think this is as close as you can ever get. Straight up. I think that argument for Uatu in C2 is the best argument for Uatu in anything I have ever heard.
I remember there being the freaking Destroy location deck day. I think you guys remember Altar of Death Hot location? I was playing an Uatu deck on that shit just to pre-armor the lane and do stupid shit against all the Destroy players. Like, oh, Uatu is so fun. But I was talking to Denish about this deck. I'm like, if you want to play Uatu, just play a fucking Legion deck. Like, you can pre-snap that shit, like, so quick. Like, Denish, as a hella enjoyer, and, like, me playing, like, yeah, real days. But I'm like, I think, like, the best home for Uatu is actually just a Legion deck. Like, because you snap on Legion, and they don't know you have Legion. And I'm like, yes, I am the player on ladder who is the least predictable of what 7 cards I have in addition to my Sauron cards. I am the least predictable Sauron player. I was thinking about running Shang-Chi and ruining some people's days. I run Electra. I run Legion. Run Scarlet Witch. Juggernaut. I run Cosmo. And, like, you know, like, there's a lot of cube equity in that. I don't think I'd ever run Uatu, though, but, like...
Well, is there an argument, then, that what you should be doing is putting Uatu in your Arishem deck so you can take advantage of Legion more?
Yes, that's an argument.
That is
I
an
don't think
argument.
it's a good one, because with Arishem, we don't need to go too far into Arishem deck building, because I don't think anyone really cares. It's Arishem deck building. But you don't want to draw too many, you don't want to put bad cards in. And so having bad draws, I think with Arishem, Uatu could actually be correct. But the counter argument would be having extra bad draws, you're going to increase your low rolls, which lowers your win rate. I think Arishem shouldn't be caring about win rate. I think it should be caring more about cube rate, which I'll push back on in a moment. But yeah, I do think Uatu, even with Legion in Arishem, like that's a good place to put it. I do think so. I think C2 is probably better, but yeah, I think it's a good place to put it.
Well,
I would want it in a... Sorry?
I was saying, I only asked that because he mentioned a Legion deck. And it's like, I don't know if there are any of those, except for Arishem right now.
Ramp.
Like, what's a Legion deck?
Once a month, I usually try to play Prio Scam. Those are usually my favorite Legion decks. Which is like, you get priority, you slam a Legion down. But like, that's happening whether they know or you know. Like, they're always staying on the Legion snap. You don't need Uatu to Legion snap, right? And I think that's the downside of Uatu in general. Like, you don't need that card to do anything, really. Like, that's the difference between snapping turn 1 and forcing a stay and snapping turn 3 and forcing a stay is very minimal. Like, it happens. I do it for fun. Like, I like just tricking them and letting them know. I never wait for the third location to snap. But, like, I think if you were asking to map out the locations to make an argument for it, I think it'd be a good exercise to do to kind of see, like, hey, but there aren't enough locations in the game that support Uatu yet. If there were more like Space Thrones, more like just destroy. What's the 3 one? But, you know, like more like that, or like Hala. like stuff like that that you can actually use to your advantage. Most of them are like kind of do nothings. So Uatu doesn't really generate that cube equity that you would like.
Yeah, before we end, I do want to touch a little bit more on the cube rate win rate thing. You mentioned that it's not as significant when analyzing the deck, but in practice, it definitely is. And I think while, yeah, my Hela deck will have a different cube rate for me than it will for someone else, and obviously win rate too, but you almost have to look at it objectively. And I think on average, some decks have better cube rates than others. Like, my version of Hela will have a better cube rate than 1997 old Hela, whatever they were running, Death and all that, just because there's more tricks, there's more Gambit, there's more Legion, like you have more outs, and so you're getting extra, outs that you can see coming. A better way to say this would be Iron Patriot, for example. Iron Patriot is a card that increases cube rate, like, because the opponent just doesn't know what's happening. It's the information asymmetry. Or like
you're talking about
Arishem
range, and I buy that. Increasing your range is valuable, but it's not a direct number. And I think what I'm objecting to is the sort of quantification of it. Like the idea that someone could go to Untapped and be like, this deck has this cube rate. No.
I do agree with you. I think it's more of an abstract thing. It's not necessarily a number you can look at, but you still have to be able to say this deck is better at cube rate than normal Cerebro 2. Just because even like if the way that you play it is maximizing cube rate, that's the whole thing, right? Like you're trying to win 8 more, even if it's just because it's unknown. Like nobody's gonna play Cerebro 2 Uatu Pixie Yellow Jacket, but because that guy's playing it, it'll have a good cube rate. Like I think you can still acknowledge cube rate to be really important on these underplayed decks while not having an exact number to say like, okay, it's this much better. You could still say, okay, it's better at cube rate. That's how I feel, at least.
It is better at cube rate as a function of being less known, as a function of hiding the information that it is using to snap, as a function of having an increased range. And all three of those things are things you can talk about. If you want to talk about all three of those things in like the abstract, I think they are good things to talk about. But I do think that like just lumping them all into the same category of increased cube rate, it leaves people with the impression that like that's an inherent thing. And increased range or obfuscation of your range or people not knowing what you're doing, all those are very valid strategies. And I don't want to act like they're not, but they're different things. And they're not all just cube rate under like the umbrella of it. And I think you guys, like what we're really having is a difference of terminology here, right? Because we all agree that these things exist and we're just talking about them in different ways. But the reason I shy away from using cube rate is that it's a stat. And we're fundamentally talking about something that is more abstract than that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I do think... Oh, Zen, you can go.
Oh, I was like, for cube rate, like, it is a stat, but, like, there's certain strategies that enable, like, aggressive snapping and, like, you don't have to retreat as much, like running tech cards. And, like, you know, there's strategies like the cube per minute strategy, which I don't know if you ever heard, KM, but you play Makari, Hydra Bob, you slam down Iron Patriot, you snap, you have a discounted card, they don't have Mobius, you win the game. And you get 3-turn games after 3-turn games after 3-turn games. You play a Sauron in there, like, they got an IP card and a Sauron, what are you going to do about it? And then you punish them for staying because you run Legion. They see all the locations, they get Legion on Altar of Death, Luke's Bar, they win anyway. So not only do you get high cubes per minute, your cube equity goes up. The cube rate is insane. And I think, like, I've shown Husky, like, my stats playing these bullshit decks, I'm always, like, above 1. Like, and
right.
on
okay.
100 games free, and it feels like every time you click the play button, you win a cube.
Here's my question for you then. If all that matters is those first few turns, why are you not running Uatu in your cubes per minute deck?
Because it doesn't scare them.
It doesn't have to scare them. It gives you the information about your snap. You get you get more, like, if all that matters is those first 3 turns, why are you not fully optimizing for it?
JM, it's because you're not focusing on the minutes part of the cubes per minute.
Oh, right.
You want the game to end.
Right. Okay.
They must leave. Yes. So you're focusing too much on the cube.
My bad. The animation adds an intolerable amount of time to this strategy. You're so right.
No, but like
I didn't mean that. Animation.
I mean, like, you don't care what the locations are because you do whatever is favorable and you scare them into a leave. If you can make your opponent turn 3 leave every single game, like in the time it takes you to lose 2 cubes, I could like play 6 games. And like I'm like, yeah, and if I win 4 cubes, like just off retreat, and as long as I'm properly retreating for 2, like when they snap back and such, because no one on NA ladder snaps back, especially against me. So I'm just like, okay, I get the 1 cube retreats, and I get to leave for free for 2. Like, and that's fine. I don't care.
I got one question for you. Have you ever considered playing a Watu on the 3rd location turn 1 and snapping turn 2?
No, because people aren't smart enough. Like, I've just gotta say it. Like they think you know you're doing something, but like every time I think the opponent's gonna do something smart, they don't. That's why I hate playing against Butt. Because Butt plays are like you're going to do something smart. But my strategy on ladder is play like your opponent is going to make a mistake. Because if your opponent makes a mistake, unless they're like someone I know, if there's someone I don't know, then I will play like they're going to make a mistake. If it's like Honifer or someone, I'm like, okay, they're going to make the right play. But like if it's some rando like rank 5,000, I'm just going to be like, all right, they're going to make a mistake. I'm going to play around them making a mistake. And like usually you win. Like, I just feel like that's correct, unless they're stream sniping, you know?
Which everyone I lose to is, obviously. Go ahead, Denish.
I was going to say, so I do genuinely want to ask this and know what you think about it, KM. Obviously, you can't do it because 98% of your opponents are sniping you. But with Xenaid, but with Xenaid, what he's doing is he's snapping very early, very aggressively, and trying to scare people off. I've done this before. It genuinely works. I even ran a Watu, to be honest. Like, I did do that. It's not good because they don't leave, but, like, this is a real thing that I do. Even with my current Hella deck, Redshift on 2, if I snap after I do it, people just leave. Even if I'm not favored, they just leave, because I don't want to play against that either. What do you think about cubes per minute as an actual stat? Like, do you think that this is something that should be looked at? Or do you think this is just kind of like a joke thing where, like, yeah, it works at really high level, but it's kind of just like, it's funny when Zen does it?
I think it's not good advice to give people, is what I'll say. I think if a lot of what I do when I make my content is I try to give people advice that I think will help them. And I think if I tried to tell people to do this, they would probably lose a bunch of cubes. And there are a bunch of different reasons for that. One, I think, is like largely a lot of the way I play Marvel Snap is informed by the fact that I do most of it on stream. I am risk averse by nature because I genuinely do not know if my opponent is watching the stream, or even if they're not watching the stream, do they know, like, you guys take advantage of hidden information a lot. I never know if I am able to do that with confidence. I do not have the knowledge or the security that my opponent doesn't know about this just because we haven't played. So even if they close the stream, I don't get to have the secret Electra or whatever, or the secret Juggernaut in a deck that wouldn't normally have it. It's not a secret. They play around it sometimes. And that's not anything I can do anything about. Like, it's the privilege of being a streamer. I totally understand that. The other thing I'm metagaming against is that I'm the world's biggest tilter. And so if I lose a bunch of A-cubers, I'm going to find the nearest window. And so I need to, by necessity, play safer than other people do in those situations. Now, where this helps my content is that it means that anything I am actually succeeding with is succeeding in that relatively upstream way. It is also succeeding in an environment where I can be pretty damn sure it's not happening by accident. I'm not getting the benefit of hidden information, or at least I am unable to play as if I am, which is functionally kind of the same thing, which is why I am able to sort of apply what I do to, like, I think this is generalizable good advice for how you should approach this stuff. in terms of deck recommendations. Because one thing you know from me is that not a single thing I ever play is a gimmick. If I am succeeding with it, it is not a gimmick. It is an actual deck that functions, full stop. And I think that that is, in a way, a benefit to what I am able to do. Does it mean that I'm worse off sometimes on numbers? Yeah, it is what it is. But it does mean that something like this, it cuts me off from being able to access the way a lot of people play.
Yeah, you play a different card game than the rest of them. You actually play the game like a card game. We play the game like a snapping game a lot, and I don't
play the game like a gambling game, and that's valid. Yeah. It's totally valid. That's how you should play it.
You're not allowed to do it that way, like
correct
by nature of what you do.
Whoa! I do not gamble. I do not. I will not take this.
Yeah, we know
your internet dropped in the middle of that because it was like, I can't carry this bullshit.
Yeah,
they're cracking down on speech, dude. They were like, we cannot let Denish actually say that. It's over.
Well, we know Denish doesn't gamble I don't think he rigged his gambit. But that about concludes this episode of the 8 Cube Circus for us. If you don't already know, you can find KM at twitch.tv/KMBestMS and on his YouTube channel at youtube.com/KMBest in a snap. You can find Denish at twitch.tv/Denish_Hella. You can find me at youtube.com/@SnapAcademyYT. And not on here after I updated it is Xenaid. You can find him at twitch.tv/XenaidTFT. Any closing thoughts, guys?
Hey, I'm go. Closing thoughts.
What's that? What's up with the TFT, my man?
Yeah, you know, like it's a Zoomer game. You wouldn't know.
Oh yeah, it's a Zoomer game. Everyone I know who plays that game is 30.
That's where you're wrong.
I don't know what Zoomers play, but I don't think it's that. I don't think it's TFT.
The competitive?
I think the Zoomers play the Clash Royale version of that.
Yeah, no. Zoomers play like Uma Musume or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, you know, I gotta rebrand. We're working on it. It's a tough ask, you know, but we'll get there. Eventually.
Right. That about wraps it up for us. Have a great day, everybody, and peace.